My name is Daryl Davis. I'll be 51 years old this week, as a matter of fact. I got started kind of a backwards kind of thing. I was still am into a lot of rock and roll and early rock and roll, the roots of rock and roll, like Chuck Berry, Elvis Presley, Jerry Lee Lewis, Little Richard, Fats Domino, Bo Diddley, Buddy Holly, Bill Haley, etc. And in order to understand how they played that music, I had to learn their background, learn who they listened to, and work my way backwards. So I worked my way backwards to the blues, which was had advanced into rock and roll through blues, country, and boogie woogie. Now, as a musician, I tried to expose myself to many different styles of music, and some forms are related, like kissing cousins, like you mentioned, country, rockabilly, rock and roll, blues. A lot of it evolved out of boogie woogie, all right? And when white people play that kind of music, it's generally referred to as rockabilly, whereby when black people play the same thing, it's called rock and roll, or back then it was called rock and roll or R&B, rhythm and blues. Two phenomena happened in the 1950s. Those Jim Crow segregation laws were still in place in the 1950s, but the first phenomena was the advent of rock and roll. And what happened when rock and roll was played. And people like Chuck Berry or Elvis Presley or Jerry Lee Lewis or Little Richard, these people, when they would hit the stage playing that rock and boogie woogie beat, white kids and black kids could not sit still. And they bounced up out of their seats and knocked over those ropes and began boogieing and dancing in the aisles together. They were race mixing. And so while you had people like Martin Luther King Jr. and Ralph Abernathy and Rosa Parks and many of the other great civil rights leaders who were trying to bring adults, white and black adults, together by way of boycotting, marching, sit-ins, demonstrations, protests, etc., these musicians that were playing this music, white and black, playing this music, were uniting white kids and black kids. So I admired the fact that rock and roll had brought many people together, white and black, in this country during a time of racial turbulence, especially the youth. Because, I mean, when you hear that music, it doesn't matter what color you are, you start patting your foot and you want to get up and dance. And I wanted to play with Chuck Berry, and I wanted to play with Elvis. The first thing was to see those guys. So I got to see them. Then it was, I wanted to meet them. I got to meet them. Well, my next goal was to play with them. Well, Elvis, of course, died. I got to work with his band members, but I would write Chuck Berry and tell him, I'm listening to Johnny Johnson, and I've got some lessons from Pine Top Perkins, and Johnny Johnson came to my house and he showed me this and showed me that. I'm going to Howard University and learning how to play piano, and one day I want to play for you. I would never hear back from the guy. And, I sent him my phone number, sent him, my address, and on my 18th birthday, I got a telegram from Chuck Berry, which I still have, and he sent me a big poster of himself. And this telegram, and, wishing me the best. And then in 1981, Chuck Berry was coming to Baltimore, to the Pier 6 Pavilion. And I knew that, by this time I knew that he had to have these backup bands. He didn't bring a band with him. So I called the promoter, and I said, you need to hire me, because nobody knows Chuck Berry's music like I know Chuck Berry's music. And in order to play with Chuck Berry, you can't just listen to his greatest hits and play Johnny B. Good just like the record. Chuck does not do that any longer. He's been playing Johnny B. Good now for 50 years. So unless you know Chuck's nuances, his little cues, his little idiosyncrasies on the stage, you won't be able to follow him. You'll be trying to play it like the record, and he's off somewhere else. So I convinced the promoter that there was nobody better suited to back up Chuck Berry than me. And he took a chance. He hired me. And then Chuck came. I went to his dressing room and asked him, if there's anything in particular that he wanted me to do on the piano. And he said, well, you said you play piano like Johnny Johnson and Pine Top Perkins, so play like that. So that told me that he had read my letters. And I did. And then from that point forward, every time Chuck would come to the area, he would ask the promoter to hire me because he liked the way that I backed him up. And then it got to the point where he was putting me in charge of hiring the whole band. In order to play that kind of music, you have to listen to who they listen to, understand who their influences were. If you want to play the blues, yeah, you can go out and buy a Stevie Ray Vaughan record or an Eric Clapton record. But if you really want to play the blues, then you got to listen to who they came from. Go back to Robert Johnson, Elmore James, B.B. King, etc., and then work your way forward. So that's what I did. I began playing rock and roll and then digging backwards to the roots. What I'm known for is probably roots music, being the roots of American music that was created right here in our country, which would encompass blues, zydeco, rock and roll, rockabilly, country, boogie woogie, jazz, some gospel. Understand that you always need to hone your craft, learn as much as you can, learn as many different styles as you can, because you want to develop your own identity. And your own identity is going to be, chances are, unless you're a prodigy or something like a Stevie Wonder or somebody, your own identity is going to be an assimilation of what you hear, various styles. Because if you keep playing what's already been done, then you're going to be known as an impersonator or imitator or whatever. If you want an identity, then you need to take what you've learned and put yourself into it. Give it some other distinguishing nuance or something.